down into the mud of your lake or river. And as long as they haven't, these will be in those waterways, and they live in the center picture there. That's what they live most of the year. They'll come out of the mud, and they'll come up and they'll be in the water system. And these crappie and bluegill are eating them. So the nymph is the tree, and then when they fly out, they're only this whole insect for only 1 to 2 days. That's all. 1 to 2 days. But when they come up out of the water, they'll come right above the surface, and their only livelihood is to mate and lay eggs for the next round. When they do, I have never seen so many crappie underneath these things. Sue and I pulled into a creek on the Alabama River this summer. We just had a couple hours to be out in the morning, and these would come up out of the water, and they were in the shade along one side of the bank, and there were so many of them. And when I put live scope on there were so many fish underneath these things, and they were a different color than I've seen them normally. These were chartreuse and brown. As you can see, there's a lot of browns in these. There's a lot of chartreuse. I've seen them blues. I've seen them all different colors depending on their price. This is a major source of food for out here. So we want baits that match those colors, right? So when I looked at the different colors for you to talk about matching that for your plastics and your hair ties and your jig ties, the species made a difference. The size, shape of the bait, the color, the seasonal movements, and the location. What I mean by location. Location means the waterway or lake you're fishing. Because every waterway lake, I can't give you one color that's going to match every one of these things that we just went through, right? So what you have to do is figure out where you fish, what are the predominant
Hey guys,
colors.
come to the Mary Carter paint store booth. They don't have any Magnum 44s today, but they do have some rare zinc crankbaits, along with just about any other tackle needs that you may have. Mary Carter paint store booth.
Black crappie pinkies, or pluckers. I call them pluckers. You want to use, I'm narrowing it down for you here. This is based on Alabama here. Translucent colors. When the water is absolutely clear, what does translucent mean in product? Semi-clear. Semi-clear. You're not going to get anything perfectly clear, but semi-clear. And why does flake make a difference inside the plastic? You ever think about that? Some people think it's because of the color. And then a lure expert one day told me the real secret. If you put this in the water, you put it under a microscope, and you look at it like a fish would look at it, when you have like black flake or any kind of flake in there, the flake is made up of a molecule that's hard and it rocks light. What that does is it makes that bait look differently because now it looks like it has holes in it instead of looking solid. So not only is the color of the flake important, but that the flake is in there, it breaks up that contrast of that bait to make it look like it's moving. Because it's not just some piece of plastic that's in the water. That's why hair jigs work good, because they're fluid. All that hair, if it's hairdo or if it's made out of what gear, whatever it may be, that's why it moves all the time. Purple, the black crappie, purple. What was the bait of those small bait fish? They were purple and had blues in them. Black, gold. I will tell you, gold water in Alabama or in Mississippi and some other states, gold colors. And Bobby Garland just came out with an itty bit mayfly that is monkey milk and gold. So it took two colors, two major ingredients that are really successful, and put them in one. And some pictures of fish.
Head over to the Impulse Lithium booth around 2 o'clock, and you can meet Bassmaster Elite Pro Wes Logan, who will be signing autographs. 2 o'clock at the Impulse Lithium booth.
Okay, tips. I did this on the first presentation, and I'm going to do it again because it applies here. The deeper the crappie, the heavier the jig head. If you don't want to put a bigger jig head on there, use any kind of, whether it's tungsten or whether it's lead, use a gremlin, use a side weight you can put onto your line. If you go to 2 to 4 pound test line, if you put one of these on there, it's probably going to break the line when you have to. It's just a matter of fact. However, what some guys have done, and it came out of Mississippi actually, is they went to tungsten, which would be weights we used to use on the backside to drag across the bottom for bass. They've gone to the tungsten version of it that are 1 weights and get them in those colors of black, and you put a some sort of way to pin that weight to give you a leader with the same line you have without tying a leader on. And it could be a bobber stop, it could be whatever you want on there to keep that lead or that weight from hitting that bait. And do about 12 inches on that so that it gives them a leader. But I really like to use normally for jigging for big fish. That's what I'm talking about. For big fish with little baits, I like to use 8 to 10 pound full polymer jam. Less active fish, slower the presentation. Slow, slow, slow. When I'm out with people that do it, I tell my helper, I say, you've got to slow down. This is not slow. This is slow. This is when they're not active and you got to go after them in the brush recovery. Don't move it. Set it in their auger, and if you've got the right match of the hatch, you're going to catch those fish. Because out of the blue, all of a sudden, you're about ready to go to sleep, and thump. And the thump that you guys were asking about happens, and you were half asleep, and you go, oh, and your lure flies up. Okay? Because the fish already hit it and left. Look for active fish. I said in the earlier seminar, for those of you that are new, if you look at electronics or you look at something in the water and you see those fish all clumped together inside of that brush and everything, they're not active. When they're active, you'll see some of them up here, you'll see them out here, and usually those are the ones that are going to bite first. They may not be the size you want, but by George, most of them leave, right? It tastes real good going into the hot grease. So I will tell you, have fun when you're doing it. But just realize, when you get down to where you only have the clumps, you're going to have to get real stealthy. Small bait, put it into the fish, and a lot of times, and Eric King will show you this, go through and rake it, slowly swimming it horizontally right over the top of it, or right what you think you're bumping. We've caught a lot of bumping without actually scaring them. You know, if you go through it like this, they're going to go, what's this happening? You know, when they're not active, they're going to be slow. Color matters, I talked about that. Blue for black crappie, white crappie, they're big on orange chartreuse. They love something with undertail. Kentucky bluegrass, does everybody know the Kentucky bluegrass? It's blue with chartreuse. That's what it is. So be willing to change the approach with your technique of color. Just because it worked every time, 5 days before, does not mean it will change even by hour, by angle of sun. It will change. And so be flexible when you go in and do it. Okay.